Hello, this is part 2 in the meaning of the 12th house using the Vertex house system. So in part 1, we presented the meaning of the Vertex 12th house. Just to review, what does it mean to have planets in the 12th house using the Vertex house system? What it does is having planets in the Vertex 12th house gives a sense that there is a deep purpose and meaning to forming relationships that help one another achieve our goals. You can think of it like this, that we are here on planet Earth to help each other, to assist one another. We're on this sphere swirling around in space, and we have to make our way, we have to survive, and more than survive, we need to thrive, we need to develop our potential and become what we are equipped to become, where our gifts and talents and motivations are. Everything in astrology is about some fundamental reality and how that reality is being expressed through us. The houses have to do with a certain perspective, a certain way of understanding life, a certain way of situating yourself. When planets are in the Vertex 12th house, they bring this perspective that here we are with other people assisting each other, bringing each other forward. Without one another, we do not do very well. So it is this emphasis on expressing love, expressing our connectedness to other people by being partners together, doing what we can to move each other along. The 12th house has to do with a sense of responsibility, a sense of purpose, deep meaning, a sense of like a fundamental truth behind things. And this is true in every house system. In the Vertex houses, it becomes the truth of our being there for each other. So when a person with planets in the 12th house is able to develop relationships where the people are helpful to one another, they feel like everything is right in the world, that they are fulfilling a kind of destiny, a kind of cosmic law to be there for one another. And in our extreme case sampling study, we're looking at the Super Vertex 12th house people. In the first video, we looked at Dick Clark, and we see that his career, his life, his activity has to do with promoting people, bringing them on stage, having them recognized, helping young people express themselves, feel comfortable with who they are, develop their own identity, and for people to be able to express themselves so that the young people can develop in a way that is free-spirited, but not in defiance or in an aggressive stance, or a competitive stance, or involved with friction and frustration with the older group. So he's helping people become who they can become and assisting one another. The 12th house is not dramatic, and it's not some kind of extreme goodwill. These people are not people who go out and save the world and feed the hungry. It's not that kind of a deep sense of commitment to the greatest needs in the world. It's more of a practical sense of developing your own relationships in a way that is constructive and productive and really useful to one another. So that Vertex 12th house does not have as deep of a emotional intensity to it. It's more of a practical, common sense approach to how we live in the world, to give a helping hand, not just to say you love someone or just to hang out with them, but to be partners, that develop a team spirit. So we're going to look at these other 5 people: Francois Truffaut, Jean Caspar, Virginie Rossano, Rudolf Schindler, and Thelma Stovall. And what we'll see with each one of them is that in their practical, everyday life, they are working with other people, they're maximizing their potential, they're assisting one another in a practical, common sense, everyday fashion. So we may, if we go back up here, we mentioned that some of the activities that are common for people with a lot of planets in the Vertex 12th house involves, reading from the second paragraph, marriages that have an emphasis on sharing and helping one another, being a coach, assistant, or guide, and also things like teaching come up. So these are the kinds of things that, here we are in this paragraph: coaching, directing, promoting, teaching. Again, it's not some dramatic, heavy, emotionally charged thing, just being of service, being together with people in practical kinds of ways. So we see that Francois Truffaut is a film director. We'll talk more about that. Jean Caspar, involved in activities, again, that assist and promote one another. And we'll see this also with Rudolf Schindler and Thelma Stovall. With Virginie Rossano, we see a few hints of it, and not as clear as with the others. Well, let's go through each one. Francois Truffaut, film director, screenwriter, critic, actor, producer. He's born in northern France at a 48 North 52. This means that the Vertex has 62% strength. Vertex houses are very strong at that latitude. And let's bring up his chart. There he is with the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars, clearly in the 12th house. You'll remember that the way we set this up is that if a planet is 5 degrees above the ascendant to 5 degrees past the 12th house, using equal houses from this anti-vertex point opposite the vertex, they're solidly in the 12th house. There's no doubt if their birth time's off a few minutes, it's still clearly in the 12th house. So we have both lights, Sun and Moon, Mercury and Mars in the 12th house. Notice that by the ascendant houses, they're going to be in the first house if you use equal house system, from 18 Capricorn to 18 Aquarius. But with vertex houses, which are very strong at the latitude he's born in Paris, France, they're in the 12th house. So what does he do with this 12th house emphasis? He's a filmmaker and film director. You really don't get much more of a Vertex 12th house emphasis than being a film director, or similar to Dick Clark, who we described in the first video in this 2-part series on the meaning of the 12th house in Vertex houses. Dick Clark was involved in mostly TV and also radio personality who featured musical groups, brought them out, brought them to the attention. So shining a light to allow people to express themselves. Here again, a filmmaker and film director, he is finding the people, finding the resources to enable them to fulfill this practical goal and the achievement of a successful film. And film was his lifelong overwhelming passion. As a child, he skipped school. He wanted to watch 3 movies a day, read 3 books a week. Of course, books are the material, the source idea for the storylines. He's so deeply involved in this concept of films and stories throughout his entire life. His passion leads him to filmmaking, film producing, which means that he's orchestrating the entire production. He's the person at the top of the pyramid of all this activity, directing and orchestrating all the details of the production. This is a very strong expression. It can be a strong expression of many different things, but it can be a 12th house vertex expression of enabling each person to be what they can be, express what they can express, and elevate them in a practical way. He finds the storyline that grabs his attention. He leverages every actor and every other contributor to produce something special. What you're doing as a director is like you're finding that person. You might say tapping them on the shoulder, say, hey, I want you to do this, and bring out the best. And also, Francois Truffaut, he has other filmmakers and other directors that he praises very highly. He says they're masters. So he's not such a strong, ego-driven person that it's all about me, Francois Truffaut. He's looking at what makes a great filmmaker, a great director. He sees what other people do that's effective. He just loves this entire process of creating the film and bringing out the highest potential of each person and each resource that is there to make it a success. So this Vertex 12th house, it's kind of subtle. The Vertex houses have this kind of practical, everyday aspect to them where they do not stand out as something unusual, out of the ordinary. It's simply just a life where having practical relationships, where you enable people to succeed, where you promote them and they promote you, and everybody works together to achieve a goal. It's something so ingrained in their lives that it's not so conspicuous or unusual. But think about it. Dick Clark, Francois Truffaut, these are the elements that are working through their life and that are the expression of these stelliums in their Vertex 12th house. Now, Jean Caspar, he is involved in trade unions. He's also born at a very northern latitude, and the vertex is 59%. Ascendant is the remaining 41%. So, again, we have a very strong vertex houses. And here's Jean Caspar's birth chart. His ascendant's way down here at 23 Cancer, 43. And with the vertex houses, we see that Sun, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Jupiter are all in the 12th house using the vertex house system. This means that it's very important for him to be involved with colleagues, with co-workers, with people that can promote and assist each other in making their way through life. We're all here together on the same boat. How can we coordinate and assist one another in our daily activities? It's sort of a normal, common sense, everyday thing that we all participate in. Okay, so let's see what his life is about. Going back to the PowerPoint. Oh, I should show you, by the way, some images of these people. Let's bring this down here. So who did we discuss so far? We looked at Francois Truffaut. So there he is, by the way, the film director. And now we're talking about Jean Caspar. And they don't even have an image for him. So a little bit of information about him in Wikipedia. Okay. So he's involved with trade unions. He's the initiator of the, quote, strategy of convergences intended to bring together reformist trade union organizations in France. So he develops a collective of trade unions. He's vice president of the International Society Observatory and linked to the Enterprise and Personnel. This is, by the way, from a Wikipedia article that's translated from French, so the English here is a little bit awkward, but you get the idea of what he's doing. He's involved in these organizations for human resources, for workers, for trade unions, and he's managing and coordinating different activities to help this social progress. He was the coordinator for the ENA of a seminar on social dialogue. He is the advisor to the Foundation for Policy Innovation. He was a member of the Commission for the Liberation of French Growth. He's active in many, many ways in promoting workers, in promoting labor, in promoting relationships. His life is all about 12th house vertex, that each worker, each person can actualize their potential. They can be respected, promoted, and proud of what they're doing and rewarded for it. And going back to his chart, notice Jupiter conjunct Uranus and Venus and Mercury, all of these, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Jupiter, all within 2 degrees in that 12th house vertex. The enthusiasm, the spirit, the innovation. I think that was one of the words in this. Did it mention innovation here somewhere? I think it did. So what's got words like enterprise, there's innovation, policy innovation, foundation for policy innovation. So this spirited, enthusiastic, innovative, cooperative, how we work and assist and live with one another. So it's just a natural part of his entire life. And why the 12th house? Because a sense of responsibility, the sense of this gives meaning to the person's life. This is why we are here. This is why we're brought together. Wow, look at all these planets. He's also got Saturn and the Sun are there as well, and they are conjunct. So this is a sense of deep purpose and meaning, that this is what we do. This motivates him to do this. By looking at the astrology chart, we know what's driving Jean Caspar. A deep sense that his life has meaning, his life has purpose. That, when he's in his later years in life, if he's lucky enough, if any of us are lucky enough to live a long life, to look back and feel that satisfaction of supporting, promoting, communicating among people to actualize their potential and their place in the world. That's a good term for the Vertex 12th house. Help each person find their place in the world. That's what Dick Clark did by promoting those rock and roll groups. That's what Jean Truffaut did as a filmmaker. That's what Jean Caspar is doing with his trade unions and his associations of workers and industry. So we see this theme built in, ingrained in their daily lives. Okay, so back to our PowerPoint. The next person, Virginia Rossano, she is a tennis player. She's now retired, also born in northern latitude where the vertex is strong at 57%. You probably don't recognize her name. She's not like one of the top 10 or 20 tennis players, unless you're a big tennis fan. But she did play in many championship games, and she won some. Wikipedia shows her lifetime winnings as $3 million. Now, things that she's known for, 2 things that are notable in her life, is that her fiancé died in 2011 while she was active as a professional tennis player. So she's young, vibrant, she's playing tennis, and she's engaged to be married to this fellow, and he dies of a brain tumor. So that's, a big crisis and tragedy in her life. And sure enough, her fiancé is also her coach. So this, again, is a theme we see over and over and over again with people with strong Vertex 12th houses, that their primary relationships, people like boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, are assisting one another. He's her coach. Coach is a very Vertex 12th house word. So we see this again, relationships built on serving one another, helping one another in our practical everyday lives. So let's look at Virginia Rossano's chart. And she has the sun and moon as well as Mercury and Mars all in the 12th house. Notice her vertex is way down here at 22 Cancer. And she was born in France as well at that high latitude. So again, we see at least a hint. Now, playing tennis doesn't have anything to do with 12th house. But what we do find with houses, they don't often describe exactly what you do, but they describe how you live in the world, how you function. The fact that her fiance is also her coach, and the way she works at, the tennis, very dedicated to it. She was known to be working hard to achieve that. It at least fits somewhat. We don't have a lot of information about her, but she was born in 1983. She's still alive. She's still active. She's now retired from tennis. And let's see here, Vicky Rossano. We don't have her biographical information. Let's bring that up real quickly. If we go into the data entry screen, we can click on the link to the Wikipedia article. Here's the link. There she is, a little picture of her playing tennis. And here's her Wikipedia biography. So you can read about this and, study this some more if you're interested. So that's Vicky Rossano. A little bit more about her, getting back to our PowerPoint. Second thing that she was known for is in 2012, just 1 year after her fiance dies of a brain tumor, she's in a finals, championship games, and playing against Serena Williams. Well, we all know Serena Williams, and she beats her, upset victory. Serena, as usual, is marked as one of the top players, and Virginia Rossano much lower, and Virginia beats her. So that was a big highlight of her life, and she refers back to it as a great memory that she achieved that. And she retired in 2018. Her tennis career started in 1999, so she was active for about 20 years, which is a long career for tennis. I could not find any information about what she's doing now. Now, what do we think will happen in her life with that strong 12th house vertex? I'm expecting her to get into coaching or teaching, something like that, or some other way involved in focusing on bringing out the talents of people. There's no evidence of this yet, but this is a way that we can test our ideas that we expect somewhere in the next 5 or 10 years, as we find out what's going on in her life, that this will become a part of her life. She builds relationships that serve one another. They're not just idealistic or, I'm in love. We're here for one another. That's a kind of deep interpretation of vertex in the 12th house. Everything in the astrology chart has some very deep meaning to it, because the astrology operates from this higher dimensional level. We are here for one another. So I expect this to become evident, not in some big dramatic way like she goes out and tries to save the world and feed the hungry and do all those wonderful things, but just in a practical, everyday way, we see her engaged in bringing out the best of people. So we'll see, but I predict, just based on that stellium in the 12th house, some kind of teaching and coaching is going to happen in her life. It's the way of people with strong stelliums in the vertex 12th house. Virginia Rossano is the least clear support of this theory among all the people in this list. The biggest evidence of her 12th house stellium is that her fiance was her coach. A few other little hints. But again, unless we know the people well, things like house placements and zodiac sign placements are not always conspicuous, and we don't have a huge amount of information about her. it's impressive that with the information we do have about these people, that all of them do fit the idea of the Vertex 12th house fairly conspicuously, perhaps with the exception of Virginie Rossano, where we're seeing just little hints of it. But to get that much agreement is not easy, especially when we don't have a detailed biography and know the people more personally. Next person is Rudolf Schindler. He was a physician. He is German, but he moved to the United States. Later in his life, he moved back to Germany. He's known as the father of gastroscopy, and he was born at a very high latitude as well, so giving him a very strong vertex. Because the vertex is strong at these high latitudes, it means that 12th house should be clearly evident. So here he is. He was born in Berlin, Germany, and with the Vertex houses, his sun, moon, Mercury, and Venus are all in the 12th house. Question is he involved in strong ways, in clear ways? Is he involved in bringing out the best in people, being there for one another, forming relationships that are practical and assist one another? He wants to assist the people he's with, and they should be assisting him. We're here for one another. So what is his life about? Well, he works with an instrument maker to make the first semi-flexible gastroscope. So this is an instrument for going in and examining your stomach area and that part of the body. To quote from the Wikipedia article, his work included writing 2 more books in the field of gastroenterology, teaching students and saving lives. There we see the teaching aspect. He was married to Gabrielle Winkler. What do we expect? We expect that they're going to help one another. She was an important contributor to his work. There again you see it. Not married to someone who has their own life and they're just married and take care of the kids. They're there for one another with their place in the world. To find your place in the world and to be there for the person to assist them in their place in the world. So sure enough, the wife is an important contributor to his work. This makes for a happy Vertex 12th house. So after his wife's death in 1964, he marries Marie Koch, and they move to Munich, Germany. And he died there in 1968. So he spent the last 4 or 5 years of his life back in Germany where he was born. So being married to a contributor to his work and teaching are consistent with the strong Vertex 12th house. So this is the way the houses work. They just work their way into your style, into the way you function. They don't dictate exactly your highest motivation. That's going to be in the aspect patterns. The aspect patterns and midpoint patterns, those planetary configurations, they are the wiring diagram. They are the forces. They are the power. They indicate what you're likely to do. The houses and the zodiac signs tell you an attitude, a perspective that you carry with you. So he comes in with this attitude, this perspective, that it's important, it's fundamental, it's a law of nature that we're here for one another and to help one another find our place in the world. And we see that, in his life. So there's the way in which the houses work. They are not going to tell us the most essential, fundamental characteristics of a person. That will be in the aspect patterns. But in personal relationships, in certain situations, houses can be very important because they tell you the style. They tell you an attitude. They tell you a perspective that is important. It's not the career choice or the most important contribution in life. But if he has a relationship where he feels that his wife is not there for him to help him in his place in the world, and he's not able to help her find her place in the world and promote her and assist her, there's something missing. There is something big missing. It becomes very, very central to someone who has a stellium in the Vertex 12th house, because this gives the person a feeling of meeting their fundamental responsibilities for why they are here at all on planet Earth. They don't verbalize it this way. The houses are an instinctive attitude, and they're taken for granted, just like a fish doesn't know it's in water. So that, as the saying goes, it's just ingrained in the person's way of being, and therefore it's usually not conscious, and very often they don't talk about it, but it's a built-in fundamental. Now here's Thelma Stovall. She was a state representative and for a period of time, and she was governor for the state of Kentucky in the United States. The vertex is not as strong for her as it is for the other people we discussed. It's only 29% strength. The ascendant is stronger, but 29% means it's going to have some effect. And let's look at Thelma Stovall's chart. And she also has Sun and Moon in the 12th house with Mercury and Mars. She's born in Kentucky at 37 North 16. And if we go to the, listings, planets or asteroid positions list, it'll tell us down here that the vertex has 29% strength, ascendant 71% strength. So with this stellium, both the Sun and Moon, both lights in the 12th house using vertex houses, and Mercury and Mars. Notice her ascendant way down here in 7 Gemini. It's only vertex houses with the stellium. Vertex houses have only 29% strength. The ascendant houses are much, much stronger at 71%. It's going to give a little bit of a tone to her life that we're here for one another. This is a responsibility. It's the way the person, you could say, quote, goes to church, as the saying goes. This is how they go to church. This is how, if you're familiar with that phrase, I don't mean literally goes to church. It's the way that we find what's deeply important to us. So it's deeply important to her, a sense of responsibility that she's there for other people, to help them in practical ways, to be for them, and to help them find their place in the world, and that they can help find her place in the world. So she involved in teaching, coaching, directing. What does she do? We see something very similar to Jean Caspar, who is involved in trade unions, because she is involved in helping people actualize. And let's read this from the Wikipedia article. It brings out a lot of these 12th house, Vertex 12th house themes. Stovall was known for her assertive style. Several times in her career, when she found herself in the position of acting governor, she was unafraid of exercising that power. She issued gubernatorial pardons. Gubernatorial pardons. One of the main things they talk about, of all the things she could have done. What is a gubernatorial pardon? This is where a person, a high official, presidents of the United States can do this, governors can do this, within the context of their state level activities, issue a pardon, which means that you have the power as a governor to say, this person does not need to be in jail or does not need to have this penalty in their lives. You are actualizing their potential. You're shedding a light on them. Just like Dick Clark shedding a light on these musicians. The director of films shedding a light on people, activating their potential. And the governor goes in and says, no, this person does not need to be locked up or restricted. Let's be there for one another in a practical way. Let's help each other find their place in the world. How can you find your place in the world if you've been unfairly penalized? The pardon is for people who the governor sees as being unfairly or excessively restricted. You don't pardon people who, need to be penalized or imprisoned or whatever to protect them, to protect the public. So it's a very 12th house vertex style that she has. She calls the Kentucky General Assembly into session to consider bills and famously issued the executive injunction against the Assembly's attempt to repeal Kentucky's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. Equal Rights Amendment. an amendment to help people find their place in the world. Everybody needs to have their chance to become what they're made to be, what their potential is. Throughout her career, Stovall was an ardent advocate of labor and women's rights. As the legal acting governor, she pardoned 3 prisoners, including a robber who had been given a life sentence for stealing $28. Is this real? Somebody's put in prison for stealing $28? That's not right. So she goes in, she pardons them. These are some of the things that she was known for. And she was a powerful person. By the early 70s, she was a figure of some national stature. Her power, her aggressiveness and assertiveness, that's not part of the 12th house, but the other parts of what we just presented are. Vertex 12th house. So I've got some conclusions down here. Her behavior and way of thinking is consistent with the Vertex 12th house stellium, but perhaps not obviously a choice of the 12th house. So again, the houses don't tell us what a person does. They tell us the style, the attitude, the perspective that a person takes in whatever activity they engage in. And they will usually choose some area in which they can incorporate this attitude and this perspective. So she's able to incorporate that attitude and that perspective of a Vertex 12th house within the context of political activity. So Thelma Stovall, as well as Jean Caspar, have a similar way of expressing their Vertex 12th house of empowering people to find their place, to be able to find their rightful place in the world. That's another good phrase for Vertex 12th house. The responsibility we have to enable each person to find their rightful place in the world. It's a responsibility. It's a fundamental law of nature. So that's it. Next we're going to talk about the midheaven house system. So there we are, my friends. That is the meaning of the Vertex 12th house. In other words, planets that are in the 12th house using the Vertex house system. We've had 2 videos. This was the second in a 2-part series on this, meaning as confirmed by looking at the charts of the Super Vertex 12th house people. What we'll do next in our research and studies in the meaning of the houses is we will look at the 12th house using midheaven houses, and we'll see how that works. Thank you very much for listening. God bless. Namaste.